some huge news that just dropped in the music world.
Some big news, yeah.
Yeah, Kendrick Lamar and SZA, they're joining forces, right, for a massive tour.
They are. It's called the Grand National Tour.
Grand National Tour. And this is not just, a couple of dates here and there. I mean, this is the real deal, right?
Yeah. They're hitting cities all over the place, coast to coast.
Coast to coast. We're talking starting in Minneapolis, April 19th, I believe, and then going all the way to June 18th, wrapping up in Landover, Maryland.
Yeah, that's a pretty hefty run.
It's a pretty hefty run. April, May, June.
Yeah.
Big tour.
Yeah, it's a big one. And, this is a pairing that I think a lot of people have been wanting to see for a while now.
Oh, for sure. For sure. They're both at, kind of the top of their game right now. And to see them come together.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to be a really interesting, really powerful combination.
Definitely. And the list of cities, it's not just, the usual suspects. They're hitting some interesting spots.
Yeah. So we're talking, like Houston, Philadelphia, yes, San Francisco, the energy of Las Vegas, Chicago, right? All the major players. But then you've got some stops that I think are going to be particularly interesting.
Right. And I think, you mentioned some of the major markets, but then there's also some stops that are a little more personal, right?
Yeah.
You've got Los Angeles, Kendrick's hometown.
Of course.
Of course.
Wait.
You always got to go back to where you came from.
Exactly. I mean, you got to show love to the hometown.
Right. Exactly. And then, you have St. Louis SCA's birthplace.
Yeah.
So, those homecoming shows, they always have a special kind of energy.
They do. The crowd is just different, right?
Oh, yeah. The energy's electric.
The hometown crowd is ready to just, explode.
Absolutely.
Their local hero.
And speaking of, places and the energy around them.
Yes.
You see Toronto pop up on this tour.
Toronto not once, but twice.
Not once, but twice in June. And, for anyone who's been paying attention.
To the hip-hop world, right?
Yeah. Right to what's been going on in the hip-hop world lately.
Toronto being so closely associated with Drake,
It adds another layer to this whole thing, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, given the, the very public and at times intense
very intense
rivalry between Kendrick and Drake.
Yeah, so you've got Kendrick who's been, going back and forth with Drake, and then he's heading to Drake's city for 2 nights, no less.
It's a statement.
It's a statement for sure.
It's like, okay, I'm here.
I'm here.
I
do.
Right. And then you throw in the fact that Mustard is the supporting act for this tour.
Oh, yeah. That's another piece of this puzzle.
Yeah, he made the announcement just yesterday, April 1st on Instagram.
Fresh news.
Yeah, fresh news. And as of right now, he's the only supporting act announced. So, we'll see if anybody else gets added to the lineup.
Right. But that alone is significant.
Oh, absolutely. Because, you think about Mustard's history.
Right.
He's worked with both Kendrick and Drake.
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, he was really, tight with Drake, worked on a lot of tracks together.
Yeah, he was a big part of that OVO sound.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, more recently, of course, he produced Kendrick's, Grammy-winning track, Not Like Us.
Which, let's be real, that was a pretty big moment in this whole Kendrick-Drake back and forth.
That was a pretty pointed track, let's just say that.
Yeah, so, you have this situation where it's like, okay, Kendrick's going to Drake City with a producer who was part of one of the most talked about diss tracks.
Yeah.
Aimed at Drake. I mean, come on.
That's going to be interesting.
It's got to be interesting, right?
Those Toronto dates, man. I don't know. I mean, what do you think the vibe is going to be like?
I don't know. It's tough to say, but I can't imagine it's going to be, just a normal, regular show.
No, I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on those shows.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, even Jimmy Kimmel was asking SZA about it.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
When she was on his show recently.
Yeah, he basically asked her, straight up, hey, are you worried about performing in Toronto?
And I love her response.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
She kind of turned it back on him, and said, are you worried?
Classic SZA.
Right, and then when he was like, oh, well, what if, who shows up? She, played it totally cool.
Yeah, like she had no idea who he was talking about.
Like, Drake, who's Drake?
Right.
I thought that was brilliant.
It was really smart.
Yeah.
It's like, is she genuinely trying to, stay out of the drama? Or is she just, being really savvy and deflecting?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest. I think she, doesn't want to get caught up in any, unnecessary back and forth.
Yeah.
But I also think she's smart enough to know that, by kind of playing it cool, she's actually just fueling the fire.
Keeping people talking.
Keeping people talking, exactly.
Which, hey, it works.
It works. And, at the end of the day, she's there to perform for her fans, right? That's what it's all about. But, it's hard to ignore that backdrop, right?
Oh, yeah. That tension is definitely there.
And, you know, going back to Mustard being on this tour, you know, he's worked closely with both Kendrick and Drake in the past. And it was actually interesting because after, you know, kind of that whole, you know, back and forth between Kendrick and Drake reached its peak, Mustard did an interview with Big Boy. And the topic of, you know, what Drake might do next, you know, how he might respond kind of came up.
And I think a lot of people were probably expecting Mustard to, you know, stir the pot a little bit.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like give some, you know, hint or a prediction.
Right. But his take was actually really interesting.
Yeah, it was surprisingly grounded.
Yeah, he basically said, you know, he doesn't really dwell on what Drake could do.
And instead, he emphasized his own focus on aligning himself with what he called pure, you know, stuff.
Yeah, like pure shit, he said.
Pure shit, yeah. And being on the right side of things. So essentially he's saying, you know, there's a lot of stuff happening in the industry where people are using tactics.
Right, gimmicks.
Yeah, just to get attention. Yeah. And he's kind of making a statement by saying, you know, I'm not about that.
He's like, just make music, man.
Just make good music and you'll be fine.
And, you know, he made it clear that he wasn't speaking to Drake or for Drake. But, you know, it's hard to not see that as, you know, a pretty clear piece of advice.
Oh, totally, especially in that context.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the emphasis on the pure shit and, you know, steering clear of tactics and gimmicks.
Right.
It feels like a commentary on everything that had just happened.
Oh, absolutely. It's like he's saying, you know, rise above it.
Right.
Focus on the art.
Focus on the music.
Let the music speak for itself.
Exactly. And, you know, coming from someone who produced, you know, a very direct diss track.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting perspective.
It is. It makes you think about, you know, the conversations that might be happening.
Behind the scenes, yeah.
Behind the scenes and, you know, the different approaches that artists are taking.
Yeah.
So, you know, before we wrap up, I do want to mention, for those who are listening and are thinking about, you know, trying to snap some tickets to this tour, Cash App card holders actually have exclusive early access to purchase some newly released floor seats.
Oh, nice.
So that starts today, April 2nd.
So if you're a Cash App user,
get on it.
Get on it.
Yeah, get on it, early access. Who doesn't love early access?
Right.
So just to kind of bring it all together, Kendrick Lamar, SZA, massive grand national tour.
Yeah.
April, May, June of next year.
Hitting all the major cities.
Coast to coast and beyond, we've got Mustard as the supporting act, which, you know, adds that whole other layer.
Right, that extra little bit of spice.
The extra spice, and then, of course, those 2 nights in Toronto in June. I mean, with all the history between Kendrick and Drake, you know, it's hard not to circle those dates on the calendar.
It's going to be something else, I think.
And, you know, I think what's really interesting about this whole thing is that it's not just about the music,
right?
Right?
It's bigger than that.
It's bigger than that. It's about the personalities. It's about the relationships. It's about, you know, the history.
Right. And all of that is kind of playing out on this stage.
It's like a real-life drama unfolding in front of us.
Exactly. And, you know, for all of you listening out there, I'm curious, what do you think? How do you see this whole thing playing out?
Yeah.
You know, what kind of energy are you anticipating as this tour unfolds, and especially as it hits Toronto?
Oh, right.
How does, you know, Mustard's perspective on the whole, you know, pure shit thing and his role on this tour, how does that shape how you see the, you know, the story between Kendrick and Drake?
Yeah.
This is more than just a concert tour.
It's a statement.
It's a statement. It's an event.
It's an event.
So yeah, I'm really curious to see how it all unfolds.
You will too. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Absolutely.
For sure.
All right. Well, that's our deep dive for today.
Until next time.
We'll be back soon with more.
More music news.
Yeah, more music news. More deep dives.
Keep it locked.
Keep it locked. See you later.
Peace.